Hey everybody, this is Josie with Cedar Creek Homestead, and I tried to do this out on the porch today, but the wind is so crazy that it just kept cutting out the sound, and so I've made this video a couple of times, and in frustration I've moved inside to try to get it ready so that we'll have some time tonight, Tuesday night, to discuss a few things, and I want to say that I've been praying for those folks that are down in Texas. I know that you've went through some difficult times and you've lost family members. That's always such a tragic thing, and we're so sorry for your loss. And you've lost property, and you've lost livestock, and all kinds of things. You've monetary damages, and just so many things on top of all of the stuff that we already had going on. And our hearts and our prayers go out to you and others here in Oklahoma and Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all down through the areas that have been hit by this storm. We just pray for you, and we lift you up to the Lord. And we just ask that you would take time to remember those that are suffering in this aftermath of the storm. I believe it's warm here today in Oklahoma. It's 67 degrees. I'm pretty sure it's probably warm down in Texas. The snow is gone. The muddy, nasty stuff is here, and now it's time to go through and assess damages and readjust if need be. And that's kind of what we're going to discuss this evening, is doing that. I was going to tell you that I have an ant problem in my bathroom and in my kitchen. And I would think that this time of year that those ants would hibernate. I don't know. Maybe, evidently ants don't hibernate. I need to look that up and gain a little knowledge about ants. But I assumed that in the cold time that there wouldn't be any ants. And I'm talking about 11 below, negative 11. The ants were in my bathroom. Maybe they were trying to get warm, I don't know. But it got me to thinking about the topic tonight and the things that I wanted to discuss. And the first thing I wanted to do was bring a little bit of scripture to you. Not much, just a little bit, about the ant, because I wanted to look up and see. I knew the Bible discussed ants, but I wanted to look up and see just exactly what I could find out. And the scripture that I settled on is in Proverbs Chapter 6. And I'm just going to paraphrase that for you. But I did have to write it down so I could remember. The Bible tells us to consider the ant and consider its ways and to be wise. So what I know about an ant is it always perseveres. And I think about the cartoons that we see from our childhood about the little people being on a picnic, and they have the big red and white checkered picnic blanket and the big picnic basket, and all of the food that they pull out of the picnic basket looks so pretty and so vibrant colors in the cartoons. And you'd see these little ants come marching in, all of them just in a line, marching and carrying off food pardon me, that was way bigger than what their bodies should have been able to do. But they carried off watermelon, and they carried off cake, and they carried off sandwiches and hot dogs and all this different stuff. And so I've always thought of ants as really being hard workers, and being in there and being muscled up and being able to carry more than their weight. And what the Bible is telling us is to consider, I hit the camera stand, is consider how they are, and consider that they work and diligently to get things done to provide for their family, so to speak, their little colony. And the next part says, they have no guide, overseer, or ruler, but they gather their food in the harvest. Well, that's what we know that we want to do as well. We want to be a people that are hardworking, that want to provide for our families. And we don't need somebody, standing over, lashing us on the back, driving us on, getting us to go, priming the pump, so to speak, to make us get out and provide for us and our families. the little ants do that. They get out there and they do their thing without somebody telling them that they have to. And that's what we should do too, is have the desire, have the want to get up and go to work and do the things that we have to do for our families, regardless of our financial situation, regardless of our social standing. You do not have to be a wealthy person to provide for your family. Now, can you provide a mansion? Probably not. I can't. Can you provide the latest vehicle, the brand name clothes, all of that? Maybe not. But it doesn't matter if you can provide those things or not. What really matters is that you're providing for your family. Do they have a full belly? Do they, have a nice warm place to sleep at night? Are they able to feel your love and your compassion upon them? Or do they feel like you're just rushing to do the latest thing and to grasp at things that have no real importance or value in family life? And if you are the type that has to have the latest and the greatest thing, I think that you're probably going to have to re-examine yourself just a little bit and find out why it is. Why is it so important that you keep up with everyone else and you stay in debt up to your eyeballs when there's freedom in being out of debt? And I have been counseling Blade and Cheyenne. They've been discussing some new vehicle and some different things, and that's their decision, that they're their own family unit. But I would counsel them just like I would anybody else, that I think that this day and age it's important to get out of debt if at all possible you can. Part of the problem is living, with credit cards hanging over our heads and living from paycheck to paycheck. And right now, a lot of people aren't even getting a paycheck and they're hurting. And we need to do our best to provide for our families and get that weight and that anchor that's tied to us off of us. Shed all that stuff and get some freedom in our lives. And part of the thing is to live, people say live within your means. But I saw this thing one time that said live below your means. And you don't always, just because you make good money doesn't mean you have to spend it all. Put back for the future or do something to help somebody else. It's okay to be kind to others. It's okay to, give a little bit more in the offering or to help a reliable charity. And we don't always have to have the best of the best. There was a time in my life when Howie and I first got married, and I think a lot of people run into this, and it's a trap, is that we have to have what our parents have right now. That it's taken our parents a lifetime to earn, working and scrimping and saving. We want it right now. We think we deserve it right now. And that's the kind of thoughts that are not every young person, but a lot of our young people have today, and is that we deserve it and we deserve it right now, and we're not going to be without it. And it's getting us into debt over our heads, and people are having to file bankruptcy and just carrying a life of just dread and drudge because it doesn't seem like you ever get ahead. But that's not really what the video is about tonight. The video is about we've made it through the storm. Now what? The little ants, they're still working. They worked through the storm. I can tell you, they're still there. They worked through the negative 11s. They're working through the 67 degrees, and they'll be working this summer. And I hate to say it because I'm using them for an example in this video, but I have those little poison things set on the back of my sinks for them because they just so invasive. But I'd rather have ants than roaches, so I guess I should be thankful there. But I've been assessing the damages from the storm, weaknesses that I have found in the storm, and I thought I'd discuss a little bit with you. Some of you that have seen some of my previous videos this week know that I did lose 2 calves in the cold snap. I lost one that started out in weakness from her birth on, and she had some little problems, and we thought she had made it out of it, but she didn't make it. And the other calf, we think that she got trampled in the hay. And then we lost the chicken. But it could have been so much worse. I could have lost my whole herd of spring calves out there that's already been born. I could have lost all my chickens and all my turkeys, but I didn't. I lost, any loss is a loss. And on a homestead, if you're going to have farm animals, you're going to have livestock and even pets, you have to face the fact that there will be loss. We have loss in our livestock, and we have loss in human life, and we can't shelter ourselves away from loving other people because we know that there's going to be hurt in death one day. We can't do that. And just know that on a homestead, when you have animals, sometimes you have to face that, and it's hard and it's sad, but I'm thankful that it wasn't near as bad as what some have had. Some people have lost their whole livelihood. And we've heard that, that a bunch of chickens have died, and chicks have died, and others have died in the cold in Texas. And that I listened to the agriculture secretary, and they're talking about needing hay and needing feed, and down in Texas, in which I think, because of that, I myself, I'm not an expert, but I would say that you probably are going to be looking at your livestock feed prices going up. Corn and cattle feed and hay. We've already got our hay for this winter, and then of course we'll have hay this summer and in this fall for this next season. So we won't be impacted right now by the hay. But feed is another story. The feed prices are going up. We just went and got two of those pull-behind feed wagons of corn today, and I haven't got the receipt yet, so I don't really know how much the prices went up since the last time I had to buy it. But I believe that animal feed and supplies for your animals is going to go up, along with other things. And I know that in this area of Oklahoma, and it could just be because of the storms that we've had, they were discussing here locally that they had a propane shortage. Now, again, I think that it's probably the storms and so many people calling, afraid of that negative 11 degrees, calling to get their tanks filled. And from what I read, they weren't able to fill your tank entirely. They were just giving you a certain amount of propane, and that may pass in a few days when everything kind of levels out. I know the propane guy that we use, bless his heart, his wife made a comment on our city Facebook page that he had received over 200 calls in just one day and was working till way up in the night. And so I'm thankful for somebody that'll go above and beyond to try to make sure that people have propane for their heating. But anyway, you might keep a heads up on that. Gas prices are going up. I think that we're probably going to see heating fuel cost and other things go up, as we know that the Keystone Pipeline's been shut down and other things that are affecting all of this. But really, what I really want to talk about is assessing, and we've already discussed the animals, but we've also made sure that our fence lines are good. We didn't have any trees or tree limbs fall on fences and tear the fences down, and we're thankful for that. Howie, before he got sick, he was working on some of the fences up on the pastures and some of our land that's up on the hillside, and he was building stronger and better and replacing some old things. And I did find a weak spot before the storm, so I'm aware of that weak spot, and it had nothing to do with the snow and ice or the cold temperatures. So there is a spot here close to the house, that needs to be fixed. So, we've just been looking over all of the things. The animal feed, we've been looking at the water supply. We didn't lose any water here in the house, but we did have to bust water on the ponds. And I showed you in that video and told you about the dangers of getting out on the pond. So we made sure that We stay at the edge of the pond. We don't get out on it. Blade busted the ice. But we also thankfully have a creek running through the property, and so we were able to move the cows over there to running water so that they could have water and wouldn't have to go out and bust the ice any more than what we just had to. Of course, the chickens, we had to carry water to them, and so we're considering different projects with that. And then I took my master list, that's what I call it, for lack of a better name, but it's basically like a grocery list, and I try to write down all of the things that comes to my mind of the things that we would use throughout the year. Groceries, water, of course you can't live without water, but groceries, any kind of supplies that we produce here on the farm or we get from other sources. I try to write it all down, and I try to do it in categories. I've got food, and in the food, then I do subcategories. I do, vegetables, fruit, and I do spices and canned goods and, baking items and just all of that. I break it all down. Of course, water has its own category, and I try to make sure that I have my Berkey water filter and I have extra charcoal filters. And what kind of water? Do I have bottled water, and do I have other water sources? And here on the farm, we're fortunate. There's a lot of water around here, and we have the ability to get water out of the spring and to do some other things that we could reopen some old wells. And we're just blessed with having a lot of water around, plus water catchment for us for drinking water and for our animals. And so water is something that we think we've got maybe a pretty good handle on that. But we're always looking for ways to enhance it and make it better. Food supply, we try to reassess the list of our first aid and medical supplies and how we would get those and what we would do in the event of emergency. All of the roads, they were ice covered, and what would we have done had somebody fell and got hurt, hit their head on the ice or something? All those things pose emergencies, and, could you have gotten out to get them help? Could the emergency vehicles gotten here to help them? All of that stuff has to be looked at. All of that stuff has to be questioned. And one of the things that I saw, I have a lot of first aid, but I don't have a really good first aid manual, a good one. I need to invest in that. So that's something that'll be on my list of things that I need to add this year to my preparations. And so then I go on and I add, all of our soaps and our things that we use, toiletries, toothpaste and toothbrushes and all that kind of stuff. Our cleaning supplies, dish soap, laundry soap. Are we going to buy laundry soap, or are we going to make laundry soap? Our toilet bowl cleaners, all of that kind of stuff. Light bulbs, batteries, flashlights. I just try to list everything and have a number, what I have, what I'd like to have, and do I have backups? And, when you go through something like this storm, it's a good time. It's fresh on your mind, and it's a good time to really think about the things that you could add to your sources. Listening to my friends on Facebook and my Cedar Creek Homestead Facebook page and reading about what people were saying they had, I get excuse me, I'm having a terrible time with my throat today. I was able to glean some of that. And so one of the things that I found very interesting and had heard a long time ago, and it went in one ear and out the other, I guess, was having a tent. So if your power did go out and you didn't have any other backup heat sources like these poor people in Texas, they talked about bringing a tent in your house and setting it up in your living room or den or wherever, and actually having your folks sleep in the tent, and it provided extra warmth. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. So I'll probably be adding a tent. I know we have tents, but they're huge tents. So I'll probably be adding a smaller tent. So if there was ever a situation or we found ourselves in need, we would have that. So I'm thankful that we're able to glean information from each other. I might tell you something that helps you. I hope that I do. But you definitely tell me things that helps me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all the knowledge and all the support that y'all give all the time, and I'm thankful for that. I think about my heat source, and this is a mobile home that I have, and I've lost 2 houses in my lifetime with fire. Once when I was a little girl, and once Howie and I lost a house in Arkansas before we moved here. And so wood heat in a mobile home for me is just really scary, and I have never been comfortable with it, and Howie wasn't either. The other thing is he had asthma, and wood heat was just something that was too difficult for him. So we had to think about other heat sources. And so we were considering, and we were looking at, and I'm still looking at, one of those Generac whole house generators where your power would just come back on after the power went out. But there again, you have to have propane, you have to have fuel for that. I do have some little portable generators, but I'm trying to think about myself now being a widow, and I'm 50. I'm not like ancient, but I'm getting older, and I want to have things that are in place that'll be easy for me to implement if I need to implement them without a whole lot of problems. And I know the kids are here, but they may not always be here, and I need to think about that. And but Blade and I have discussed one of the outdoor wood heaters, and I don't know a lot about them, but I have been reading up on them and seeing, if that was even a possibility to consider, because then you would have your generator. If you didn't have propane or other kind of fuel, then you'd have trying to build on backup to backup to backup, and that may not even be a possibility for me. And y'all know best. You guys might be, maybe you'll steer me clear of that and say, don't do that, do this instead. And if you have something that you would like to offer, some kind of idea that you think or opinion that you would like to give, well, by all means, leave it in the comments below, and steer me clear of the outdoor wood heater if you don't think that's a good idea. But anyway, I'm just trying to think. That was just an example of different things that I'm trying to assess and do. And a storm shelter, I've been thinking about. I'm so scared of storms, and that's our next season. Spring season brings a lot of beautiful things. Here in Oklahoma, it also brings tornado season, and I'm scared to death. So I've been thinking about storm shelters, and Howie and I had some ideas in place of a farm kitchen that we were going to build, and we were going to implement a storm shelter inside of that. That's a project that I'd still like to do, but of course it's going to have to go down the list, down the list, because right now, of course I don't have the same means anymore. I've got to readjust, and that's fine. But I would still like to have a storm shelter, and I'd like to have one that it could be, you can walk into it, because I'm a klutz and I fall down the steps. Plus I'm getting older. I'm aging in place, and I would like to have something that my in-laws could get into easy too, because as they age, the stairs are going to be difficult for them too, and we don't want any falls. We don't want anyone to get hurt. So all these ideas are going through my head, and all of this stuff, is coming out of these storms that we've just went through, and reassessing and trying to come up with the best possible ideas that we can come up with for our homestead as possible. And that's what we all need to do. I encourage you to take out your list and look over it and readjust. Take off the things that's not going to matter, that are not of the most importance to you, and put on the things that are of more importance, or at the time are more important to you, that you could see that it's probably maybe a weakness that needs to be taken care of maybe as soon as possible. One more thing before I go. I know I've rambled on, and I hope y'all have gotten something from this tonight, but I'd like to come back to the ant. This morning I had already been considering what I was going to talk about, and I try to bring something without sounding too goofy and too off the wall. But I was having my devotion, and I just happened to have a devotion that involved the testimony of Corrie ten Boom. And she was speaking about her time that she spent in prison. And if you know her story, you know that she was a lady from Holland, and she and her family had helped the Jewish people hide out. And they eventually got caught and got arrested. And she was when they took her to prison, they put her into solitary confinement. She was there for 4 months by herself, no human contact, no other people. She said she had just a little ways to go one way, just a little ways to go another way. And that's all she had. And in 4 months' time, she said, it got to her so bad, and she cried out to the Lord that she just couldn't do it anymore without human interaction. She said one day this little ant crossed her floor. She seen it. And she said she became friends with this ant. Every day, it would come in. She'd talk to it. And if it sensed any danger, there was a crack in the wall, and the little ant would go into the crack. She said that the Lord spoke to her spirit and told her, just like that little ant, that crack was its hiding place, that Jesus was her hiding place. And she took that, and it brought her great comfort. And she stood on that through all of the things that she was to face in that prison, and all the things that she and her sister and others went through. And you can read her testimony in her book. And it's just amazing, the things that she went through, and horrific, really. But God let her know that Jesus was her hiding place. And we can be that. We can have that same thing. Jesus can be our hiding place. If we trust in Him, if we give our heart to Him and make Him Lord and Savior of our lives, then He can be our hiding place. And I'll tell you what that brings. That brings about the ability to lay your head on your pillow at night and be at peace. Does that mean that you don't face troubles? No, it doesn't. You still go through death in this life. I know that firsthand. You still go through heartache, and you go through sorrow. You go through times of meager ends. We go through some things. But He is always there with us, and we can hold on to Him. And folks, that's my prayer for you, that you would hold on to Jesus, and that you would do your best to provide for your family. Look well to the ways of your household, and we'll make it. Try our best in the times when things are good to really add to your supplies, and to do all that you can, that we have backups to our backups. Anyway, this is Josie with Cedar Creek Homestead. Until next time, I want to say that I love and appreciate everyone. And I know I've rambled on, but I hope you got something out of it. And until next time, we're gone.